Hello. So, assalamu alaikum. Aga.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम रहमतुल्लाह।
How are you?
जी अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, शुक्रिया। आप यहाँ ठीक हैं सब?
Alhamdulillah, bilkul ठीक ठाक, first class. So I think session is live. So if you're okay, inshallah, just we can go ahead and start.
Okay.
Jazakallah.
आवाज़ वगैरह सही है?
Everything's fine, जी alhamdulillah.
नहीं, आपकी नहीं, मेरी यहाँ से।
Yeah, आपकी है, exactly. आपकी आवाज़ ठीक है. It's a good one. Jazakallah. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I would like to invite Aga Hayder Shirazi to join and address the Mu'mineen regarding that SEERAT al-NABI sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please, Aga, as whenever you're ready, please address us with your sweet voice. Jazakallah.
Thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الأطيبين الأنجبين بهم نتولى ومن أعدائهم نتبرأ إلى الله اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توبا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم صل على محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
The topic was on SEERAT Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that is the akhlaq, the manners, the adab that were observed by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam were being mentioned, and it was mentioned that the akhlaq, if it is good, it brings about every good to you, and if God forbid, if akhlaq is faulty or flawful, then it will bring about everything that is bad as well. And a good natured, well mannered couple can live comfortably together for the rest of their lives if their akhlaq is good, even if the material and the worldly needs and requirements may be lacking or may not be to the mark, or to the, even then they can survive and they can live happily for the rest of their lives. And also how comforting a teacher, a good teacher, is to his students. Students, they remember him for the rest of their life if his akhlaq was good. They respect him, they remember him, all those good memories they have from the teacher, if he was well mannered and if he had the akhlaq of Rasulullah. But God forbid if the teacher, the mentor, the ustad, if he was immoral, if he was ill mannered, if he was naggy and violent, then everyone who was associated with him would say, God forbid we ever meet him again. So, this again doesn't require any rock science or any hadith or document or evidence. It is natural, it is the instinct or that what Allah has placed in everyone's nature, that everyone likes someone who is well mannered, someone who is well groomed, who is well trained, who is khush akhlaq. Everyone likes him. But from others, people they run away. Now, this is the characteristic and the akhlaq that God refers to the same in the Holy Quran, where we find that Allah addressing the Holy Prophet, He says that all the worship on one side, services provided by Rasulullah on the you just put it away, says that what attracted everyone towards Rasulullah was his kind nature, was his good akhlaq, was his attitude, was him being extra well mannered. And ayah in Quran says that فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَظًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. That what attracted people towards you was your kindness, was your softness, was your good akhlaq. And if you were rough and tough and hard hearted, everyone would have drifted away from you, or you would have ousted them from your presence. That was the akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. And also some of the examples were mentioned in the previous session. One of them was from marhum Sheikh Ja'far Kashiful Ghita and his akhlaq towards someone who came in the congregation amidst, in front of those thousands of people in the Jamaat, and he wanted help and he could not, and he spat on his face. And then how he treated and how he collected the money and he gave to that person in need. Likewise, one of the other examples that we can mention, one of our Asatid marhum Ayatullah Allama Misbah Yazdi, who passed away just a few months ago, he used to say that there was one of the other Asatid in Irfan. He wasn't living in Qom, in some other city far away from Qom. One of the students, he had a question and he had a doubt in this mysticism in Irfan. And the solution for that was only with this Ustad. And the Ustad's name is Ayatullah Fisharaki. Now, it's those days where there's no telephone and the communication wasn't like now. So they had to travel. And the travel also wasn't so easy. So he gets a coach and travels. It's a day's journey, comes to the Ustad's house, knocks at the door, and then a very um, loud and you can say an ill-mannered person, a lady, she opened the door. And the moment I say that I've come to meet Ayatollah Fisharaki, she started bashing him and said what and what not. And he found out that that's his wife. He was waiting and she said that he's not in here. He should be back by about 4 o'clock. He was standing waiting for his ustad, and then all these questions and doubts came to his mind that I've traveled all this distance to this ustad, Ayatullah Fisharaki, to find a solution to the doubts that I have. And if this is his wife, then how come it can be that bad? And is he really of that caliber that I've traveled all this journey to come to meet him, to come to see him? All these doubts that were coming and opening up in his mind. At a distance, he sees that an old man is coming, and there is a lion walking in front of him, and there is a snake in his hand like a whip. He sees that's Ustad, rushes to the Ustad to come and see him, and says to him, "What is this that I see? That you are a lion is tamed before you, and the snake that is such deadly and poisonous is also tamed in your hands and is acting like a whip. And when I go there to your house, that was the treatment I got. What is that and what is this?" He says, "All what you see here is as a result of patience that I had there, Allah bestowed and gave to me." So that is as a result of the good akhlaq. And many a times this question also is asked quite a lot nowadays, and especially with this divorce rate such high. For every little thing they want to move apart and separate and divorce, etc. There are some tests and trials in this universe that Allah has placed and kept in place for every one of us. Unless we pass those tests by just separating, by divorcing, or by just rebooting everything, it isn't as such that the next phase is going to be safe. So maybe that test has to be passed, and it may be repeated with the same new alliance as well. So better be with the first one and stay and give the test, and that's easier to give. The next person, whoever it's going to be, is going to be a fresh new start and fresh new. Now, in certain cases, yes, you have to go through that difficult phase, but most of the cases are not like that. Now, anyway, as a result of that tahammul and tolerance and patience, Allah gives a lot. One of the other things that we see in the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that blaming is forbidden. We cannot blame anyone. So we cannot blame anyone. In fact, we learn a lesson from everything. Now, in these examples that were mentioned, where the other person was so wild and rough and tough, so from that roughness, so many lessons were learned, and Allah gave that much of a beauty to the other partner. One of the key and the practical ahadith is a narration reported from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. Imam says, لو علم الناس كيف خلق الله تبارك وتعالى هذا الخلق لم يلم أحد أحدا. If people they knew how God created this creation, created this mankind, they would never blame anyone else. So there is a wisdom, there is a hikmat, there is a destiny, there is a decree that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He has written, and based upon that everything moves ahead. So that is, if man he understood how God he created this mankind and this creation, he would not dare to blame or rebuke anyone. Now all this is to learn Amr bil Ma'ruf, but to blame and rebuke, it's that disgusting, nor are we allowed to blame anyone. Now we should not blame others, and it is also stated in the riwayat that if you blame someone, it will happen to you, so be careful. Anything that I do to anyone, if I, God forbid, accuse someone of something, or if, God forbid, I make fun of someone for something, or mock someone for something, or a flaw that he or she has in him, definitely before I leave this dunya, before I die, I will see all that mockery and all that blaming, all that negativity that I said and did for others, or even if I had those thoughts in my mind for others, all of that will be witnessed, will be seen by myself before I die. Now, this is a fact, and it is for mu'mineen that is definite to happen, because Allah has also said that we will forgive them. So, forgiving also, He has various plans, sometimes due to these difficulties and tough tests and trials, etc. Now, the hadith is as such: من عير مؤمنا بشيء لم يمت حتى يركبه. Whoever rebukes a believer for her sinful deeds will not die, but that he has committed it himself. Now, when you keep this in mind, one of the other things, especially in this day and age, that is happening quite a lot, and that is magnifying the wrong that others do, indecency of others, uh, in the form of a joke or a comedy or a mockery or whatever to make people laugh. That also applies to it. So we have to be extra careful, extra vigilant, what we share, what we send, what we record, and what is being said to others. If it is something that is indecent, I don't share, I don't say that to anyone. And many of these sins that you see nowadays, generally people they don't do them, but then they've come up with all these different shows. In those shows, these sins that are generally not done by people, they are shown that this is what is happening. It may be happening somewhere on the surface of this earth, and maybe a very minute fraction of the population that they do such stuff. And then when you bring it to the public and show them this is what's happening, so all these windows, the dirty windows or the negative thoughts, they open up in the minds of people, and that's how people they get drifted towards inhiraf. Quran says that إن الذين يحبون أن تشيع الفاحشة في الذين آمنوا, that is those who like to propagate or magnify the wrong of in an indecency amongst the believers, for them there is a painful punishment. Now, one of the other benefits that you get as a result of having this akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that Allah He gives an insight, a vision that realities can be seen by that individual. That also depends on the quality of his sayr and suluk, and how much he has worked on it, and how much he has been pious and God wary. So depending on however much input he has given, that much of an barakat Allah also gives. There is this dua we have in Munajat Sha'baniyah, where we say, Allahumma arin al-ashya'a kama hiya, that Allah make it as such that I see the ashya means things. I see the things as they are. That is the reality, the haqiqat of those things I see. One of the Urafa, his name is Haj Mullah Agha Jan, he with another pious person, again with those who doesn't have these firewalls on him, Haj Hadi Abhari. The two, they come on a Thursday night to the haram of Abdul Azim Hassani in the south of Tehran, one of the Imamzadas. He comes there and they see that people, they are in Dua Kumail and everyone is reciting Al-Af, Al-Af, Al-Af. Al-Af means Allah, I seek your forgiveness. One of them who could see the reality of what is happening and what is being chanted and said by them, he says, why are they saying Alaf, Alaf, Alaf? Alaf in Farsi means grass, ghas, grass. Says instead of hearing Alaf, I hear Alaf. And that grass means God give us wealth, give us money, give us food, give us house and dwellings. So whatever they are asking is for this dunya. And then when the reality is Al-Af that we say 300 times in the qunut of the water prayers, Al-Af means forgiveness, means that you yourself, you become an embodiment of forgiveness. That is, I am after the forgiveness of Allah, that I want Him to forgive me. For that to take place, I have to forgive others. If I forgive others, He will forgive me. And if I truly want to taste the meaning and the applicable of what exactly this al-af means, and if I want to taste that, then I have to understand it first, and then I have to forgive whoever has done bad to me, and then Allah also will forgive. It's all these reciprocal give and take that has, like uzkuruni azkurkum, you remember me, I will remember you. That is, you help me, I will help you. Nusrat is from Him only when you help Him. Or He says that you give qard or give a loan in the way of Allah to Allah. So it means helping one another. So all these things, they take place only when something takes place from me, an effort from me, and only then that forgiveness also from Him will be given to me. So if you taste and understand forgiveness, you will see how sweet and pleasant it is. So these are important. Or for example, one of the other ulama of 1950s, our parents, they were in their taqleed, our parents, grandparents, Ayatollah al-Uzma Burujerdi, who was buried in Qom in the sacred shrine of Hazrat Ma'suma Salamullahi alayha. And this great alim, he was living in Burujerd. Burujerd is about 150, 200 kilometers from Qom. Now, Marhum Ayatollah Luzma Bahauddini, he said that Imam Khomeini and Ayatollah Luzma Gul Paigani, now all these were the Maraja Taqleed of the late 90s, who passed away in the late 90s. They tried a lot in bringing Ayatollah Burujerdi from Burujerd to Qom. Once both of them, Ayatollah Gul Paigani, Imam Khomeini, were mujtahid themselves. But all that effort to bring another mujtahid, a marja, and then they used to participate in his lectures as well. Now, someone who doesn't need these durus, he participates so that people, they recognize him, people, they come to his dars. Now, this great alim, he dies at the age of about, he lives about 90 years. Now, in his late 80s, when he was on the mimbar giving a dars, now those of you who've seen Durus Kharij, the Ustad, he discusses a verdict and then he says, brings evidence from Quran, from Hadith, and all the fatwa of the ulama that have been in the past. He mentions all of them and then he gives his own opinion that this is what I think it should be. Like, for example, the ruling on the moon sighting, whatever his ruling is, he says, based upon all of these evidences that we have from Quran and Hadith and the fatwa of ulama, this is my opinion and it should be as such. Now, here the students, they either accept it or they have a debate with the ustad. Some of the students, they have a lot of discussion. Says one of the students, he was saying, repeatedly having objections to my to whatever I said, and then at one point I just went a little bit sharp and my tone increased. Now, this great alim in his old age, the only and the whole soul marja of the entire world, he comes to the house, finds the address of this student and comes to his house, was waiting for him to come out. He says that when it was time for Maghrib, and generally at Maghrib he used to come out for namaz, he says that I went to him and I said, I've come here to ask you to forgive me. Says, forgiveness for what? Says, because my tone changed in the dars today. I spoke a little louder towards the end of the discussion. He says, I didn't even notice that you went loud. And it was a discussion, it was a debate, it happens every day. So there wasn't any need to forgive. And for you to come all this way and ask me to forgive you, he says, no, unless you forgive me, I will not go from here. He says, there wasn't anything done. He says, allow me to kiss your hand. So this old man, plus 80, Marja Taqleed, first authority, bowing down and getting and seeking forgiveness from his student. So these great personalities, now then, what he imposed on him at this age is 1 year he fasted. 1 year he fasted just for changing his tone from whatever that pitch was to a little bit higher pitch. Says this soul, this nafs, it has to be punished, it has to be trained, that it doesn't trigger and burst so often. So people who have arrived at this high rank, they have worked hard, and it is as a result of this control that they have on their soul, on their nafs. Allah Ta'ala also bestows a lot to them. Or, for example, another personality that can be mentioned over here is Marhum Haj Mirza Ali Agha Shirazi. If you go on the website of Hazrat Ma'asuma Salamullahi Alayha, in Farsi they have, I don't know, I haven't checked the website recently. In the Farsi tab, if you go and see, they've got an option called Sitaregan Haram, the stars of the Haram, of the sacred shrine. And all those ulama and all those orators, speakers who have served the sacred shrine, their brief biography has been mentioned. Among them, it's this Sheikh Ayatollah Ali Agha Shirazi. And he is among those great personalities that his students, one of them is Marhum Ayatollah Dibaji. He says that I had gone for tabligh to Karaj, that is again in south of Tehran, and I see that Amirul Mu'mineen Salamullah alayh is there, and in that mukashafa I see Ayatollah Sheikh Ali Agha Shirazi, Amirul Mu'mineen, hugging him, and then Sheikh Ali Agha reciting this qasida, the Farsi qasida, saying that daran nafas ke bemiram ke dar arzuye to basham be an umid deham jan ke khak kuye to basham. That is, Allah, this breath that you've given me be such that every breath of mine be the desire to meet you, and also with that hope I die, that I be the dust of your lane. به وقت صبح قیامت که سر ز خاک برارم، به گفتگوی تو خیزم، به جستجوی تو باشم. And on the day of judgment, when I will rise from the dust and dirt, over there also I start talking and speaking to you, and also I in search of you come to you. He says that I saw Ayatollah Ali Shirazi recite this, and Amir al-Mu'mineen is hugging him. Well, anyway, it passed. And then when he returns from Tabligh to Qom, there Ayatollah Burujerdi, he has held a majlis Fatiha, and that is on the demise of this sheikh. He says, when did he die? He says, they gave that day. He says, that very day I saw him in the presence of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salatu wassalam, and that Amir al-Mu'mineen greeted him, and he was dying from this dunya. Now this great alim, Marhum Shahid Mutahari, he says that those days there wasn't anyone who could teach Nahj al-Balagha. The only person who was a master in this subject was Marhum Ayatollah Ali Agha Shirazi. And he was giving lectures in Isfahan, not even in Qom. He says, I traveled, I went there, and it was something beneficial that no one was as such of that caliber at that time. He says one day, this Ustad, he comes on the mimbar, and instead of giving the lecture that is on Nahj al-Balagha, he burst into tears. He was crying and crying, and then everyone shook that what happened today? He is not in the right mood, and he is crying today, and said, what happened? He says that today I saw that I have died, and I have been shrouded, and I have been placed in my coffin, and the coffin has been brought to my grave, and I see there a little puppy that is there, and every now and then this puppy, it is barking at me, and he wants to disturb me, harm me. And I got worried. And I was a reciter, as I was a reciter of Majalis for Aba Abdullah al Hussein alayhi salam, I sought help from Sayyid al Shuhada and said, Ya Aba Abdullah, you help me. Hush that dog away that wants to harm me. He says, Imam, he comes and he hushes the dog away. And then it was reflected to him and it was said to him that what you saw was the tajassum amal. Tajassum amal means the embodiment or the amal that was done. It was given a form in the barzakh. And that what was that? That he said that on and off, sometimes his tone towards his spouse, towards his wife, it used to change slightly higher than whatever it was. Now, when I say higher, not like what generally we do, no, yell and shout and all that, God forbid, says whatever his delicacy was, a little bit more than that, says even that much is not permitted when it comes to dealing with other members of the family and also mu'mineen at large. Even that little is not allowed. Someone comes to the presence of Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam and says, Yabna Rasulullah, this topic that you have opened up on diyat means the atonement or the penalties that a person needs to give. For example, he has harmed someone and he has put a cut on him or bruised or wounded someone, or for example, in an accident, he has lost his limb, he has lost his eye. So there is a diya, there is a penalty that needs to be paid. Now he says that, Ibn Rasulullah, this diya that you have mentioned in your teachings, what is the minimum and what shouldn't be done? Imam says to him, now this is an ustad to his student, wants to tell him the reply to this question that he has. He says, can I hold your hand? Imam says, Imam Sadiq to his student says, can I hold your hand? He says, yes, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, this is my hand. Says, allow me to tell you what is the minimum of that diya that needs to be paid. He says, yes. He says, do you allow me? A few times Imam repeated that and then says, holds his hand very gently. And that little faint impression that was from Imam's finger to the hand of that student, a little impression was seen on the skin. Says even that much has a diya to be paid. So that also we are not allowed to. Then yelling and shouting and then hitting and beating children and all of that, it is not permitted. And also everything has a diya and has a penalty to pay. Now, when we see what happened over here, that he sees a puppy that comes in the form by his coffin, this is exactly a hadith that says, "Innama hiya a'malukum turaddu ilaykum." It is your actions that will return to you. So those actions they will come into a form, and they will be with us in our barzakh. So the good and the bad, whatever we have done, it's going to be with us until the day of judgment. So that's why we see in all these riwayat that talk about the horror in the grave, or the um, a turbulent grave being the first station, etc. So things that help our prayers, our fast, our du'as, our Quran, and then one of them, it is this wilayat of Ahlul Bayt, and then being well mannered. Being well mannered also emerges in our graves in the form of nur, and that also remains with us until the blowing of the horn. One of the other Urafa, his name is Karbalai Ahmad, he says that one day my child, my son, he was creating a lot of nuisance at home, and I wanted to yell at him, saying, "Stop it." He says, the moment I intended to shout at my son, I saw Amirul Mu'mineen, a vision open before me, and Amirul Mu'mineen standing there says that if you shout at him, I'll hit you. Or if you hit your son, I'm going to hit you. So that is the consequences and the events that take place. Now, what we have in these ziyarat, you must have read that every one of us, that is mu'mineen at large or the creation at large, all of them, they are a franchise of the Imam alayhi salam. Now, when we see Ziyarat Jami'at al-Kabira, there's a phrase, it says, قبوركم في القبور, and then أجسادكم في الأجساد. So your graves are in the graves, your bodies are in the bodies, and then your existence are in the existence. نفوسكم في النفوس, your souls in the souls. So how come Imam has one nafs, one soul, one body, one grave? Then how come it is being said that your soul is in the soul of everyone? Your body is in the body of everyone. So your grave is in the graves of everyone. So it means that everyone, and in particular mu'mineen, they are an extension to the Imam alayhi salam. So if I am bad to someone, I am bad to the Imam alayhi salam. If I yell at someone, I've yelled at the Imam alayhi salam, aliyazu billah. If I shout at someone, it's the same thing. So we have to look into everything in that different perspective. And Salamullahi alayhim ajma'een, they are that we are all part of their existence. Also that hadith that says that Shi'atuna qad khuliqu min fadilitinatina, that our Shias, they've been created with the leftover clay with which we were created. So it's the same clay. So there is that connection between us and the Imam. And this network, it's so complex that it gets to the Imam wheresoever he be. So we are all connected to Rasulullah, all connected to Imam al-Asr alayhi salam. So every other person, he is also a branch, or he is a franchise of the Imam alayhi salam. Now, the honor, the sanctity, the ihtiram that Allah has given to mu'mineen, that is great. We have so many riwayat, and to the effect that someone who hits a believer has indeed he's hit God, the Prophet, of the riwayat of this. So it is, or for example, someone who has hurt or harmed a believer, a mu'min, it's like destroying the Kaaba, who's tore apart the Kaaba and all the stones of the Kaaba. Rasulullah, for example, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, in one of these riwayat, he says that man adha mu'minan bighayri haqqin, whosoever unjustly persecutes or a believer, harms a believer, says فَكَأَنَّمَا هَدَمَ مَكَّةَ وَبَيْتَ اللَّهِ الْمَعْمُورَ عَشْرَ مَرَّاتٍ. It is as if he has destroyed Mecca, and also he's destroyed Baytul Ma'mur, which is on the fourth sky, the Kaaba that is on the fourth sky. He has destroyed that not once, but 10 times for just hurting and harming a believer, a mu'min. Now, sometimes a person, he destroys a house and he leaves no trace, just like the destruction that is caused by the enemies nowadays in every part of the world. So this is called destruction. But sometimes whoever beats a believer or mocks at a believer, hurts a believer, says he has destroyed Mecca and Baytul Ma'mur not once but 10 times. Or elsewhere says, Man adha mu'minan faqad adhani. Someone who has hurt a mu'min has indeed hurt me. Waman adhani, waman adhani faqad adhallah. and whosoever hurts me has indeed hurt Allah. Now we do have the same riwayat for Hazrat Fatima, Salamullahi alayha, where the Prophet says, whosoever hurts her has hurt me, whosoever hurts me has hurt Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So mu'mineen are also just like that. So whosoever harms and hurts and mocks at a mu'min has indeed hurt and harmed the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Or for example, in another hadith, the Prophet he says that man adha mu'minan walau bishatri kalimatin. That is, if someone ill treats a believer. Walau bishatri kalimatin means even as little as a word. Kalima means a letter. So he's used something, and that way he has ill-treated a mu'min, says he will arrive on the day of judgment, says Ja'a yawm al-qiyamati maktuban bayna aynayh, between his two eyes will be written Ayisun min rahmatillah, that this person is in despair from the mercy of Allah, that is, has no hope in the mercy of Allah. Now, being hopeless in the mercy of Allah means that's a dead end. Nothing for him, nothing whatsoever. So no salvation for him. So hope it's the only thing that a person can have to get forgiven and then get that special treatment from Allah wa ta'ala. But someone who is hopeless, someone who has lost hope and is in despair from the mercy of Allah, that's the greatest of sins, and nothing can be done for him. So here says, with a word, if you've hurt and ill-treated a believer, on the day of judgment he will arrive, written between his two eyes in despair from God's mercy, and it is like the one who destroyed the Kaaba and Baytul Maqdis and has killed 10,000 angels. That is for someone who is who uses bad language or even a word against the mu'mineen. Now, all these teachings that we have, now all the examples that were mentioned, like for example, Hajar Ali Shirazi, he says, I was a bit sharp, a bit loud, a little bit harsh at some times. So that was reflected in the form of that puppy that wasn't leaving me, wasn't wanted to hurt me. So in all these cases, what do? We seek refuge in Allah and get help from the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And all these unresolved problems that we have to resolve them before we leave, before we depart from this world. And that is possible by way of tawassul, by getting help from the A'imma alayhimus salam, by du'as, by prayers, etc. Now, Hadith says that al-khulqul hasan altafu shay'in fi ad-din wa athqalu shay'in fi al-mizan wa su'ul khulq yufsidu al-amal kama yufsidu al-khal al-asal. So a beautiful akhlaq, it is the most delicate thing, the most beautiful thing in religion, and it's going to be the heaviest, the weightiest of our actions in the mizan, in the scale of balance that we will place on the day of judgment. And a bad akhlaq, a corrupt akhlaq that destroys actions, just as vinegar, it destroys honey. You put some vinegar in honey, it's going to be destroyed. Says good actions also, they are destroyed by a bad akhlaq. Now, confronting these good traits and morals that Rasulullah carried and Mu'mineen and all these great personalities they had, it is immorality that destroys human action. Immorality is like a dropping of a mouse. If you find a dropping of a mouse in your food, in a milk, so much of food has been prepared, a little dropping, it's going to destroy everything. Nothing can be consumed. So the analogy that we find given in this hadith for immorality is so very interesting, that because honey is the healthiest and the sweetest of Allah's creation, most nutritious food, but then and that is used for healing. Quran says that fihi shifa'un linnas, but then that best of things also becomes useless if it is destroyed with that vinegar. So akhlaq also, that has to be so good. All of it, actions that we have done throughout our life, all of that can be destroyed by being ill-mannered and by being uh, now, when we look into the seerah of the ulama who've been trained with the seerah of Ma'asumin and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they say that the first step in this spiritual uplift and growth is that towards every excellence we want to grow, it's to remove all these obstacles that we have. So once these obstacles that are hindering between us and our perfection, they are removed, only then can a person grow. The fires that are within us, they need to be extinguished first. We have to have a base, and then we go slowly towards perfection, towards growth. And that is possible only when we have removed and ousted all the bad and the evil that is in us. Man sa'a khuluquhu azzaba nafsah. Hadith says that someone who is ill-mannered, he harms himself first. He hurts himself first. With his bad attitude, he has created a hell within himself. And then he creates a hell with the other members of the community and those who are around him. Now, there's a hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. It says that man qala, now this was in the presence of Rasulullah. Imam Sadiq is reporting this incident that was during the time of Rasulullah. Says, Rasulullah has said, man qala subhanallah, says someone who says subhanallah, Allah grows for him a tree in the heaven. And then every other zikr that he utters, a tree is grown. Alhamdulillah, a tree is grown. La ilaha illallah, another tree is grown. And then this person who was there in the presence of Rasulullah, he says, then we've got a big green forest of trees that are waiting for us in the heaven. Rasulullah says, yes, but be careful that you don't send a fire. That fire that would set everything ablaze and would destroy everything. نعم ولكن إياكم أن ترسلوا عليها نيران. Said, be careful that you don't send a fire that's going to devastate and destroy everything. And then he says, يقول يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول ولا تبطلوا أعمالكم. And that all people be obedient to Allah, be obedient to Rasulullah, and do not destroy your actions. So do not destroy your actions means that is by way of these negative traits and bad akhlaq that we have. That is a fire that is sent to the akhirah that destroys all of our actions. May Allah help us understand these beautiful sayings and teachings of Ma'asumeen and make it as such that we be able to adapt and act in accordance to these beautiful teachings of Rasulullah. Ya Allah, between us, Quran and Ahlul Bayt never ever come across a moment of separation. Make it as such that we also be able to apply the akhlaq and seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam onto ourselves. وسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجا.
Thank you so much, Aga. Appreciate it. It was a great speech. And on behalf of, I think, Momin, EC, and the Momineen, I think really appreciate it for giving us the opportunity to listen to you and the great speech. I hope by William Chad the Masumeen that we follow this, the saying, whatever we learn here today. So inshallah, we'll try our best, and inshallah, we'll speak to you next week. And please remember us in du'as. And thank you so much for your time.
خدا حافظ.
Khudafis.
خدا حافظ.